Hi there, and welcome to my mini exhibition proposal. Today we're going to be talking about the theme of the failure of legislation and the allure of prestige. Essentially, repatriation laws need to be revisited, as they tend to favor the institution over the individual. The moral obligation that should drive museums to return items with questionable provenance is often ignored in favor of the prestige of ownership, suggesting there needs to be stronger international regulations put in place. And this sort of leads us into our first subtopic. And with our first subtopic, we're hoping to show that repatriation laws are needed as museums value the prestige and will not give objects back on their own volition, even when they are known to have been stolen by Nazis. And the piece we're using to exemplify this subtopic is Jan van Goyen's Huts in the Canal. Now this piece is important because the Polish government has absolutely just refused to acknowledge its theft and even toy with the idea of giving it back. And what's so important about this piece is it has such direct provenance and proof that it was stolen, as we're hoping to highlight with our supplementary material of Gold Striker, the family who owned it, his notebook of all of his pieces, and Göring, a Nazi leader who directly went into the museum and sort of looted his collection. And the Polish government has refused to acknowledge this or even toy with the idea of giving it back. Our first topic is important because we're trying to show how museums won't give stuff back on their own accord and there needs to be repatriation laws. With the second subtopic, we're hoping to show that repatriation laws need to be revisited as they allow for loopholes to deny claims. And to show this, we turn to our second piece in the exhibit, Portrait of Martha Lieberman by Max Lieberman. This piece is important because it shows how repatriation laws need to be reworked. For despite this being acknowledged as being stolen and looted from Martha Lieberman's house after she committed suicide to avoid the Nazis, the institution that currently owns it refuses to give it back to the heirs. This is because despite there being international regulations governing it, the institution claims since they're private, it doesn't apply to them. So it sort of shows how there's flaws in the system that sort of need to be reworked and addressed in new regulations. In the supplementary material we have planned for this are videos of the Lieberman years describing the emotional toll and weight of their mother's suicide to avoid concentration camps. And then also, to supplement that as well, we hope to project videos and stills of concentration camps and the atrocities committed in them over the painting and this piece at large. So moving on from the second subtopic, we sort of move towards our third. And that is the ways in which duress is understood and needs to be reworked, as works sold by families trying to escape the Nazis often aren't returned and lose their legal battles. And we sort of flow into this subtopic because we're trying to just show all the ways in which repatriation laws are sort of currently failing. In the first example of how duress is misunderstood, we turn to the Camille Passero piece, Rue Saint-Honore in the Afternoon, Effective Rain. And what's important here is how, despite it being stolen by Nazis during World War II, the judge ruled that they weren't actually under duress, as they did not sell directly to the Nazis or coerced directly by the Nazis, but instead were fleeing from the threat of the Nazis. And sort of the supplementary material we're going to have here is audio recordings of the last surviving heir, describing his family's odyssey of pain and frustration, and sort of telling how 3 of his family members have died since trying to reclaim this heirloom. As well, accompanying this will be photos of Nazi-occupied Berlin and the state of Berlin post-Battle for Berlin. And this is the city in which they were fleeing from. With these photos, we hope to highlight the threat that the family was fleeing from. So from this, we turn to our next piece under this subtopic, which is Pablo Picasso's The Actor. And the importance of this piece is it once again goes to just show how ridiculous this sort of definition of duress is in repatriation law, despite pieces being obviously sold to escape the Nazis. So the previous owners here, for this example, were the Lefmans. And the judge ended up ruling in this case that despite the Lefmans' flight from the Nazis, because the Nazis weren't directly forcing them to sell the paintings, the Lefmans did not sell them under duress. We're also including this piece because the judge also decreed the defendants had made the claim too late. So we're sort of trying to show sort of like two natures about repatriation laws that are worrying and sort of need to be readdressed. And to drive the point home that the Lefmans were fleeing from the clear and present danger, we're going to once again include some videos and stills of concentration camps and the atrocities committed in them projected over the painting, as well as photos of the city that they fled from before and after being bombed, and propaganda photos of the bombing to sort of highlight the danger. And our final piece in the exhibit sort of takes aspects of all the different subtopics we've talked about so far and aims to sort of combine them together as it highlights a bit of each of the issues we've been talking about so far. The final piece in this exhibit is The Poet Max Hermann Niers by George Cross. And this piece is important as it sort of culminates all these different ideas. George Cross was a German artist whose drawings of Berlin life in the 1920s was often depicted on the more senior side. He was anti-Nazi and feared he'd be persecuted as a degenerate artist. He fled Germany in 1933, and he left his works behind in the cares of some Jewish art dealers. Now, despite his heirs arguing that the art dealers were coerced into selling or abandoning their paintings by the Nazis, the MoMA actually still retains the rights to this piece, due to varying vague guidelines and misinterpretations of how duress is understood. To sort of highlight this, where supplementary material is more videos and stills of concentration camps and the atrocities committed in them projected over the painting, but also photos of Gross and his anti-Hitler art. So we're trying to express the idea of why he was fleeing, the threat he was fleeing from. So all in all, we hope that all the pieces in the exhibit highlight that museums care more about the prestige of owning these rare items than the moral responsibility of giving them back. So with current ambiguous ethical guidelines and a reliance upon litigation, Nazi-era artworks will continue to be handled ineffectively, inconsistently, and unethically. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to the pitch for this mini exhibit, and I hope that it goes into your consideration for funding, as this is an issue that needs to be addressed.